Welcome, everybody, to DAT Poker Podcast, episode 134. Although there's some controversy about what episode this is, it is October 25th. There's no controversy about that. 2022. I'm your host, Dave Schwartz, alongside producer extraordinaire with a Washington Football Club hat on, Mr. Ross McKee.
I'm very good, thank you.
Terrence Shannon, T, how are you, sir?
I'm very good. Also, we are approaching Halloween, and it feels like for the first time I have like a kid that's old enough to really like get into the Halloween spirit. So I might just blast off at the Halloween decoration store this week, but don't tell her.
And I hope to see you dressed up. Daniel Negreanu from an undisclosed location in Los Angeles.
A mold-free location.
Buddy, bliss. Okay, so for those that don't know, I'll give you the quick spiel. We had mold. We had a guy come out and check. We had mold, and it was making us both sick. And my wife for a long time, me for a lot less. And last night she had the best sleep she's had in months outside that house. We got out as soon as we can. For me, and I recommended this on Twitter. I put out a tweet. I recommend get a watch, get an Oura, get a Whoop, whatever it is you get, and it'll alert you to some things that you might not otherwise have experienced. So for us, we had a leak in the bedroom a long time ago, like a year ago. Never did anything about it. Got it fixed about a month ago. And there was a hole in the wall where I'm at. Now air is blowing through this hole. All of a sudden, my recovery app, which, Whoop, they give you a recovery number based on whether or not you're ready to work out. And every day it's saying you overtrained. I'm like, I didn't work out. It's, 19%, 18%. Normally I'm at 90%, 95 sometimes, when I'm not working out. And so I noticed it was like every day. I'm like, maybe it's broken. Maybe the thing's not working, right? Yeah. Then I started to feel like the chest thing, the headaches, the fatigue, and all this stuff. I go to Korea. I'm there for 4 days. My numbers are good again. Go home, they're back to shit. So I'm like, this is fucked. And then I started to feel it more and more. So we hired a guy, really good job. He took samples to the lab, showed us the evidence, and it's like we have all the types of mold, including the very worst kind. So I'm very hopeful that this is going to help with my wife's health, with mine. And so we were able to, luckily, thank goodness for means, I was able to find a house not too far away. And the puppy's got to get used to it. And other than that, but it's been great. No, it's really, I really feel lucky that, we're able to do that. Cause a lot of people, I've heard so many horror stories of people that live with mold. Brittany Murphy died from it. A lot of other people, you don't know why you're sick. And then all of a sudden you're like, duh, right? Makes sense. So always look into that, guys. You never know.
There's a lot of evidence. There's a ton of environmental hazards just going on that we probably don't know about. Stuff in drinking water. Obviously, the big cases that we know about where drinking water gets contaminated, we find out because people die. But you say it's more likely that you get this low level sickness. And it's interesting you bring up the variables. I've been an Oura guy for a long time. There's mine. And, I hang out on the Oura forums, and it's funny that it does tell you things about yourself that you don't even know. I've seen multiple women on the forum basically find out that they were pregnant through the Oura because their body temperature raised, and then they take a pregnancy test. Turns out, I was pregnant during that time where the Oura was telling me my body temperature is all weird. People who got, I think you mentioned this about the Whoop. It tells you get, often people got COVID before because, their resting heart rate, their HRV tanks before they COVID. So, yeah, I mean,
my wife has a Team Oura too. My wife has an Oura. And it's it's crazy. It's it tells you you're on your period. You're like, I'm done. It's coming. It's amazing what technology has advanced now. And obviously it's a side discussion, but, obviously data is the new gold, right? And, obviously I understand that when you do this sort of stuff, you're giving up a lot of your own personal data to China or wherever else in the world. But I mean, I think it's a good trade-off, right? Big deal. It's data collection I get is a big deal, but man, I think health comes first. And these things, shockingly, every time I thought it was wrong, it's not. There's something going on. I'd have a day where I feel good and it says your recovery's low. I'm like, but I feel fine, But then you look deeper and you look at some of the health numbers. You're like, oh, look at my respiratory.
Or you hit the gym and then you're just like, boy, I am performing like shit today in the gym. That happens to me.
What these apps help you with, if you are training, right? You are doing that stuff, and I haven't been since I felt this way. Is the whole premise behind the recovery thing is it tells you, okay, if you worked out too hard yesterday, today's a rest day. You're not recovered enough to work out. Or it might say, you're moderately covered, consider doing a reduced load. And so high-end athletes use this to sort of gauge how hard to go each day, right? And, obviously, your ego and mind wants to say, fuck it, I'll push through. But it's probably not, you're actually sacrificing gains. You're not doing anything good if you're working out when you're not, feel physically okay.
What's the plan for the old house?
So we have this guy. We're going to work on the plan. It's going to be a full rip apart because we found mold in 4 or 5 different places in significant amounts and whatnot. So he's going to do everything, and we'll be here in this house for. He said it will take him about 2 weeks, but then you got to get a contractor to rebuild all the stuff they break. So we're looking to be here a month or two, which I know we're going to talk about it coming up. Makes me sort of itch to play a little bit of poker. So I may be making a trip myself.
All right. So let's move on to the continuing saga of the Hustler Casino Live. It's a soap opera, right? At this point, we're all enjoying it on some level, and we're hating it on another level. But it took a turn for the worse or better. I'm not sure which on Sunday. When
it looks like she cheated, right? Now the question is at what?
Right, her marriage.
There's some form of cheating that happened, probably.
The poker player again who tweeted this.
Jesse Lonis.
Jesse Lonis, yeah. So he's watching Sunday. I think his tweet was something like, "I can't even get away from this shit on Sunday watching the NFL." It's a video, a clip of Rip and Robbi at the Las Vegas Raiders game. Like they're front and center, kind of sitting close and, lovey-dovey.
Well, to be clear, I don't think the cameraman was trying to pick them up. They were trying to pick up the crazy guy who was making weird faces. But right there in like you said, row J seat 4, there's Robbi and Rip.
And the best part about it was the crazy guy they were zooming in on was standing behind them and he's yawning. It's just so like perfect. Like he's yawning about this soap opera that continues to go on. So, how is this relevant? Who cares if, they've both said that they're not in a relationship. If they are, I guess maybe it goes to her credibility and, the lies keep stacking up. Does it make it more likely she cheated in this span that we talk about? I don't know.
Yes, because now we're introducing a new type of cheating.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, no, but the thing I think is saddest about it somewhat, but I guess the wife already knew, like Rip's wife, apparently people are tagging her on Twitter and she's known for a couple of weeks, something's going on there or whatever. But listen, I think it's a sad case of like, imagine again, as I've said before, if Robbi's innocent, right? And what she's gone through. And now people intruding in her like private life and whatever's going on in her marriage and extramarital affairs and all this stuff. We've gone down a slippery slope that I don't think we can return from in terms of like, ever being justified if she ends up being innocent. But one of the other things about innocence, which is really the saddest part about this case, is there is a possibility of proving guilt, right? If you find all the information, you could prove guilt. We'll never be able to prove she's innocent because there will always be that faction of players that go, yeah, they didn't catch us, but something had to be up, right? And there's no way you can say I absolutely can prove I did not do anything, and that's why I said on Twitter many times, that's why you have to presume innocence until guilt, because it's unfair otherwise. You can't prove innocence.
Distilling all this stuff, I go back and forth, and I have I'm sure we all have, trying to figure out exactly what the likelihood of anything happening was. And I think my newest, sort of theory that I've just landed on is she's not great at poker. She played a really bad poker hand and is, getting staked by this Rip guy who's involved with Jake Paul and understands the power of social media and what it can do. And once the hand happened, they realize, oh, well, maybe we can turn this into some sort of thing that'll get us, some return on investment, so to speak.
How do you plan to monetize this? So explain that to me. You're Rip. You're the mastermind behind this. How do you plan to monetize this? Rip at this point still only has like 1,000 Twitter followers or something.
I would say that I think that theory gets negated by his reaction. Like when Garrett took the money, like that, they were not like, oh, he was pissed. He wanted, he was like pissed off that he took the money.
Yeah.
That would be so elaborate that we'd have to give them a level of intelligence that I don't think,
they're currently exhibiting
displayed at this point to like really have like this huge game with the, oh my God, look at the pants. It has an illusion. It could be a device, like in the ring and the twisting, and it caught on. I do think this could make for a great movie. The question is, in the movie, is the movie better if they're innocent, or is the movie better if they cheated? I think for a movie's perspective, definitely better, if it's real and there's something going on.
All right. So have you guys moved back and forth at all, or are we still kind of at the same?
I haven't seen any compelling evidence. Like, this is not evidence. This is TMZ bullshit, right? Like, it doesn't matter whether Rip and Robbi are in a relationship. It's certainly bad optics, because now we know that one thing that's certain is they're playing off some sort, like, I wouldn't say certain, but likely playing off of some sort of shared bankroll in this game. Right. We don't know about the Jack 4 and whether she saw Garrett's hand and all that stuff. That's not something we have new information on. But the fact is that you shouldn't play in a cash game with a significant other. You shouldn't play in a cash game playing off of the same bankroll and sharing action and stuff like that. And this is a strong indicator. I mean, we already had enough strong indicators, honestly, that they were doing that. There's already witnesses that suggested that they were more than friends and that sort of thing. But as you said, like, this is, like, I'm starting to feel gross now. Like, I'm just sort of like, I hate TMZ and gossip and all this kind of stuff, and that there's two marriages that are that are threatened by this, and this poor woman who's got a new like, looks like about a 6-month-old baby or 4-month-old baby who's just like, now
what these guys did, not by sort of being on TV. Like, they did that. We're not responsible for that. Like, I don't understand that take.
What do you mean?
Well, the marriages are in the situation they're in because they cheated on each other, or
totally,
or whatever.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, but it's not poker Twitter's fault that
Well,
happened.
yeah, but it kind of, like, here's the thing though, right? Like, I get what you're saying. Is that when you become part of the public eye and you're famous, it's just the part of it. It doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's not ugly and disgusting. And it doesn't mean that I hope that next week we don't even mention this topic anymore because it's actually over. But, like, when you are in that pedestal, often what happens is lies. Like, you look at silly Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. They were together, and everything ruined it. Like, it was, media drive, all the people talking or whatever. And, apparently they were supposed to be together. So it just has such a damning effect when you get personal like that. Like, I have a sore spot with anybody. Like, you can say whatever you want about me, totally fine, but just leave my wife's name out your motherfucking mouth. Okay. Or I will show you that I have a license in anal proctology. Okay. I will remove your teeth. I will stick them directly up the anal cavity, and you'll chew on them with your intestines. I don't know. I just go with these fucking things. Oh. But yeah, I get, what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, that should just be off limits, like all that stuff.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
And I think probably I don't know. Let's not even go down. Who cares? Doesn't matter.
It's just not relevant to the poker scandal. I think, like, when you ask, like, does that affect our percentage and stuff like that? Like, I don't think it is relevant at all. This is just like housewives looking at the tabloids trying to find out what the latest gossip is, and poker Twitter has
something next week. There will be, and I do think there is a possibility, as you guys sort of alluded to, that, at this point, there's some joy out of it, right? Potentially. And it's like, oh, watch this. We'll be at the Raiders game. Obviously, they can't plant the camera filming them and stuff like that. But being out in public in Las Vegas, she's become really well known, not just in poker, but mainstream. There's a chance that people are going to see who you're with and stuff. So it's not like they're shying away. She's willing to go on podcasts and be on the forefront and all that.
LA Times. She's really giving interviews to LA Times. I think to some extent she enjoys the publicity. I don't think Rip does.
Cashed in the main event. She cashed in the WPT 5 Diamond. She was sitting with Kitty Quo, and Kitty Quo gave expert opinion. She said, my opinion, my experience, say no cheat. So she's got no cheat, and I don't know that, but that's the one thing I will say is everyone I know that's played with her, from Sam Grafton to whoever else that have talked about it, none of them believe that she cheated.
Yeah, they all say, like, this is actually how she plays. Yeah, Melanie Weisner was really clear about this too.
Like, people have seen her do wild things, and me, having played 30 years, and not from the internet world where I look at every hand and go, well, the range is supposed to react this way. You're allowed to have, like, some King 5 suiteds in there. Like, fucking throw that shit out the window, bro. I've been playing 30 years. People don't think like that. They just do bonker shit. And I think this hand is like just lightning in a bottle of, like, insanity in every way. And that's why it's become so fascinating. But, to that, there's been a lot of reasons why it's fascinating. This guy took 15K off her stack. This guy has access to the whole card. This guy has a history. It's like, holy shit, man. Like, it's a never ending.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, moving on. You mentioned the WPT 5 Diamond. Daniel, you played in it. We talked about it last week, and we were wondering out loud if it would surpass or get to the $5 million guarantee. We talked about the Bellagio and the struggles that they have. And it did end up getting to the guarantee, 569 entries, put up the 10K and surpassed the $5 million guarantee. Chad Evsledge, is that how we pronounce Evsledge? Evsledge.
I think it's a long E.
What's that?
That's Chad E.
Oh, Chatty. Okay.
Yeah,
Chatty, 10K main event. His second World Poker Tour title. He also won a bracelet in the past World Series of Poker, I believe. And takes down, the tournament and 399 hands at the final table, including a 4-hour head-up battle between Chatty and Steve Buckner. And there was
it was up to Alan Kessler, would still be going. Because they're tweeting about how this is outrageous that they're playing 14 big blinds deep heads up. I'm like, they've been playing for fucking 7 hours or whatever it is, bro. Yeah. You know, the tournament has to end at some point.
And they changed to 30-minute. I think they switched to 30-minute levels. I saw at the final table to try and get it going. There was some discussion, and I'll just step on the tweets here a little bit. And Vinny Pahuja was on Twitter, and he was asking about why, this is a sort of one of the flagship WPT events. It wasn't televised, it wasn't streamed. And Vinny was asking why. And Matt Savage answered, and he said, final taping and live streams come with a cost. If the casino partner doesn't want to pay that additional cost, then it isn't done. Vinny replied, and why can't the World Poker Tour pay the cost or at least share it? It's a terrible look for your tour and brand that one of your most prestigious annual events is not able to be viewed both live or at a later date. If you want to grow the game and increase WPT brand awareness, it comes with a cost. And I kind of see where Vinny's coming from here. This is the 5 Diamond, a flagship event, and we're not going to see it anywhere for those that to watch tournament poker. And yeah, I get that there's a cost, but I wonder, is that the only thing? Is there issues, with the Bellagio or something like that? We talked about the Bellagio last week. So I don't know. Daniel, what are your thoughts here on why nobody's going to see this event?
I will say that, I wasn't aware. I didn't know what they were doing with it. And I thought back to the days of the WPT when the 5 Diamond was going on, and it was like down the hall in the convention center. There was literally the immediate seating for people to be there. And then there was an outer area because there was so many people that couldn't watch, and they were filming, the big thing. Obviously times have changed and things have adapted since then, but to see it kind of just in the top section with a couple of handheld cameras and not much pizzazz around it was surprising to me, whether or not it is a flagship. I don't know what their shooting schedule looks like. I think part of the reason they do that now is because they do a lot of their final tables much later, in the, at the Luxor Theater or something like that. So I think for the amount of money you're talking about with the Bellagio event, maybe that's not as feasible to do that far out. I don't know what they're going to do with the Win, but yeah, there's no question when you don't televise something or you don't stream it or anything like that, it loses a lot of prestige, loses a lot of, because there are still those people who play poker tournaments, and part of their calculation is like, oh, cool. I'll be on TV or I'll be, streaming live somehow.
So Daniel, I think I know the answer to this, but also related to this tournament, are you on team no dinner break or team dinner break? I'm pretty sure I know the answer.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what, I'm explaining real quickly because it's twofold. Most tournaments like the WPT, you've got like 6-7 days, right? It's the greatest thing ever to just play from noon. You're done by 9. You live a normal life and you come back the next day. It's fantastic. But again, it's 6-7 days, right? So the drawback is, how do you get recreationals to get off work for 7 days? I guess you can make the argument that, like, if they're on day 5, they can skip and whatnot. Now, some people are saying, well, why don't you do that for the World Series of Poker? World Series of Poker, totally different animal, right? Some of these tournaments, we start at 3 p.m. We play till 2 a.m., right? And that is already without a dinner break, right? So if you were going to suggest like playing just till 9, well, now you're either going to do one of two things. Either you're going to have to cut the structure and make it more of a turbo, or you're going to have to turn 3-day events into 5-day events, right? And with so many events at the World Series of Poker, it's not quite as feasible. I think really the answer, the best way to improve the World Series of Poker specifically next year from that perspective is no dinner breaks at all, done, but have food available to players to order to table, right? So, but really like streamlined where there's an app and, and there sort of is this already, with a lot of different places. But I do agree that most people would rather just play, because the dinner breaks, imagine So it just makes the day so much longer. Like, it doesn't sound like a lot. It's only an hour. But when you think about what you could do with those 11 a.m. starts, right? I mean, you could have people, done at like 9 or 10 p.m. You could, in theory, do that. You're eliminating the dinner break. But when you have the dinner break, then you're not going to have the dinner break and just have one level after dinner. That's stupid too, right? So now you elongate the day even more because you're adding, you got to have at least 2 levels or 4 levels. So now people are just playing too late. But yeah, I think unanimously people who experience it, especially older players, prefer the shorter days. But the World Series of Poker, again, I think it's just there's 3 events sometimes a day at the World Series of Poker. 3, and I don't think we should trend towards like making them all crapshoots. So that negates one possibility. And I don't think it makes sense to make them all 6-7 day events either, and keeping people out of other ones. So I love the idea for, the WPT and for other events like Triton or whatever. But I think for the World Series of Poker, my answer would be no dinner breaks and more access for food at the table.
Yeah, I am strongly on team no dinner break. I mean, Daniel brings up a really good point that I didn't thought of because my immediate thought is always like, why doesn't the World Series also do it like the WPT where, you would just play early, get out, like, 8 o'clock's a totally reasonable time to have dinner, 9 o'clock, reasonable time to have dinner. You just go out, you get to decompress your day. The thing about having the dinner break in the middle of the day is you play poker, you have your dinner break. Some people, I know me personally, I'm really sleepy after I eat dinner. And then, so like, the last like 4 levels of the day for me are just kind of like, you're kind of mailing it in a little bit. And then, so if you're done play at midnight or whatever in 11 o'clock event, there's still that poker rushing through your head. You can't quite get to sleep. So, you go home, you can't quite sleep. Whereas if you're just done playing poker at like 9 o'clock, you make a dinner reservation with friends, you go out somewhere off strip or something like that. And, you hang out with your friends for a couple hours, have a nice long dinner, you go to bed nice and easy, come back and play the next day. That's the way that I would like it in a perfect world. But Daniel does make a good point with respect to the structure, is that the WPT can do this because they do have longer days. Now, if it were something, what's that?
Yeah, more
days. Excuse me. Yeah, more days. And so, yeah, I think it would be okay for the World Series to, have some, I think, especially in the 3 p.m. events, to have them be a bit longer, to be planned for them to be 4 days instead of 3 days. The guys chasing the player of the year, like the guy in this podcast, might not like that as much as Rick, like me, who comes and plays like 7 events a year, like, but hey, it's about guys like me, Daniel. It's about guys like me.
You know what else is about guys like you?
Yeah.
You just described in detail how I exploit people in poker tournaments with dinner breaks. You all go to dinner, have maybe a glass of wine or 2, eat a big turkey dinner, whatever like that. And the last 4 hours, you're passing out asleep on ABC. I go to my trailer or I go somewhere else and I sleep during that entire period, wake up, ready to go. And it's typically a crucial time, right? Like, like the last few hours of a day, blinds are bigger. It's more important to be sort of, engaged. But again, that's one of also the reasons that many years ago, somebody would say like, hey, let's go to dinner during the World Series. I said, I don't know you very well, but in addition to that, like, I haven't been to a dinner with another human being at the World Series of Poker in a decade. Like, not even, my wife or anybody. Like, I eat alone, it's like, but it's like I had a random guy, like sort of someone on Twitter. We should grab dinner, I'm nothing personal, but it's not going to happen. Okay. Just sorry, I'm not being a dick. Just no, I got to do what's best for me.
One of the other things I wanted to bring up and talk about was the Bellagio. They canceled a $200K guarantee the day before events, $1,100 buy-in. And my question here, and this seems to be happening obviously more than just at the Bellagio, but my question here is, when is it okay, or is it okay to cancel a guarantee? And if so, how long before the start of the event is it okay to do that? Given we have, rooms are, and I obviously don't think any guarantees should be, canceled this early or this close to the day. I mean, there might be a period where, especially if there's no satellites or whatever, and I know you guys will touch on this, but it's hard for these operators as well. They've got to try and attract players in a muddled calendar with all kinds of different events. And yeah, if you don't feel like honoring the guarantee, don't put one on there. But they're also trying to do something for the poker community and get people to a tournament and have a lot of people and make it good for the player. Having said that, there's logistical issues here with being good at making guarantees and being good at picking a spot in the calendar. But Terrence, maybe go first on your thoughts on canceling these things and when it's okay to do so.
Yeah, well, I don't think that anybody is out there making tournament guarantees just for the good of the community. So I think, yeah, like I'll give a little bit of grace. I mean, I like it when companies put up a big guarantee but basically that's just them being ambitious. That's just like them putting their money where their mouth is and taking a gamble. So I like it when they do that. As for when it's okay to bail out of that, I mean, ideally nobody would do it more than a couple weeks before, but that's not the real world, because I don't think anybody knows that they're going to miss their guarantee until it becomes very close, like probably within a week or so. And that's the point where most people have made their travel plans. I don't like canceling within a week. I understand why it's done. I think if you were to cancel a poker tournament within a week of, like, a guarantee rather, within a week of when it was happened, I think you should try your best to compensate the people who had intended to play, especially like if people pre-registered and that kind of thing, they won satellite seats. Do something for them, give them a rate on, at least give them some rake back or something like that. I do try to do something for them because it makes you look really bad when you do it. I think is the main thing. Yeah.
So first of all, I think we have to get to a point where we have to agree that like there is a time frame where it's okay. It's not what we want, but there's like COVID happened or something like that. There was a 5 million guarantee on something and 3 people can show up. We know that a year in advance or whatever the case may be. So there has to be some period of time. But I agree with Terrence in the sense that like 1 week is way too far. And what we've done is we sort of diminished what the term guarantee means now. If these sites can go, these companies were like, oh, we're guaranteeing the day before they know they're not going to hit it. They're like, oh yeah, guarantee's off. So the other issue that you brought up, though, I think is a slippery slope and a little more difficult to implement logistically, is the idea of like compensating in some way. Because I'm like, what about me? I'm like, I was going to go play that, and I had this and I didn't do this. And it's like, then you have the burden of proof. Like maybe I'll just make it up. Oh, they're giving $500 to people who said they were going to play. Cool, I'll take it. So it becomes very difficult to pinpoint. People who pre-registered, that's a very small amount of people anyway. But what we're seeing as far as a trend is like not ideal. I think for me, I think the time frame is between 6 weeks to 2 months, right? Because once you start talking about a month, like you said, a lot of people do make plans and a lot of people do book flights and hotels or whatever like that. And often they're non-refundable, or often, you have to pay some sort of, cancellation fee or whatever like that. And again, it's just a bad look. My idea, like realistically though, is don't be so reckless and don't be so sloppy with these guarantees, right? Like just don't do it. Like you think it's going to help your event, a great deal. And it does when it works. But when it doesn't, you look like assholes because you are, right? Like I remember years ago, and I remember it was John Duthie who was like mocked them, but it was whatever. EPT Barcelona had it had a year where the main event had was like $8.5 million prize pool, right? $8.5 million. So the next year they put a guarantee on it. They made the guarantee $7 million. So it's like, wait a minute. So you're saying it's going to be smaller? Now, on one side of the coin, you get why they do that because you don't want to be reckless. The other side of the coin, it sounds really bad for your event. It's like, stay tuned next year, guys. It's going to be way smaller. Like that doesn't really sell.
Yeah, so and that's when you just don't do a guarantee because there's no rule that says that tournaments have to have guarantees on them. If you're getting $8 million worth of prize pool, you don't need to put a guarantee on it. People already know it's going to be a big tournament. So there's no need. You're just free rolling yourself when you do stuff like that.
One of the many things GG Poker does really well as far as executing is specifically having guarantees that they don't really even give a shit if they hit, right? It's like, wow, we're going to throw this fucking 20 million guarantee on this tournament. If we hit it, fantastic. We had a great number of players. If we didn't, that's also awesome because guess what? We're going to pay. We're going to give back to these players who played. We're going to give great value. We're going to add all value. So if you're a company and you approach it like that in terms of your guarantees are a marketing expense and it shows you're reputable and are honorable, like which Bellagio just failed at, and so did the other place over there. It's like, listen, we just gave you great value. You're good customers. Now, if as a customer, when I see that, if I see a company that's like, oh my God, they missed the guarantee by like 800K and they still, they did the right thing. And they're still going to do it next time. Good for them. Those are the kind of companies I want to give my business to. So it's almost promotional. I remember when we first started, GG Poker, having tournaments, I created the GG Masters, which was a freeze out $150 buy-in. And, you know, Gigi wasn't what it is today, the behemoth that it was. And we put like a crazy guarantee on it, which was $250,000 for $150 buy-in with no re-entry and no rebuy. And then I'm like, this is crazy. So first week, we don't hit it, you know, and they come back and they go, you know what we should do? Double it. What is wrong with you guys? We didn't hit the guarantee and now you want to double it? And they're like, yeah, it's great. We're going to build this thing and we're going to, you know, we're going to continue to push the envelope and stuff. And they did, you know, and then eventually they did start hitting 500K and whatnot. I just think like you're really putting your integrity and your word on the line when you set a guarantee. So if you're not comfortable and you don't have the green light from those above you, if you don't have the green light from the casino, the vendor, or whatever, you know, your bosses, that like they're going to be pissed at you if you pay this, and just don't do it, or just make it minimal. Because here's the thing: how many people are affected by them saying 3 million guarantee or 4 million guarantee? Does that make any difference to anybody? 7 million. It was an odd number. I told them, I said, guys, you should make it 5 then. Just make it 5. What's 7? 7 is weird. What, 6.3 million guarantee? Like, where do you get these numbers? You know? And ultimately, the number doesn't matter. All that matters is there's some guarantee. Like, look at the WSOP Europe, okay, which I know we're going to get to. You look at some of these tournaments, like there's a 50K or something, has a million guarantee, right? That's like 20 players, right? But still, you know, there's the possibility. We saw at the Bellagio, they had tournaments with 9 or 12 or 15 players. But the bottom line is it says a million guarantee and they'll honor it. So, you know, you go there and if nobody shows up, awesome, because you get free money, you know, but otherwise you're going to have a really good tournament. So that's what you do, is you just lower it, because the number, unless it's crazy, like the win is doing 10 million, you know, for this December one or whatever, unless the number is really big and crazy and sexy, you just do yourself a disservice by, you know, setting a guarantee that's going to cost your company money, that's going to cause them heartache and problem.
Yeah, I think it reinforces the brand, right? It gives brands the ability to differentiate themselves. You said GG Poker is one, exactly, and also, you know, the Rio, the World Series of Poker, the World Series of Poker brand, sorry, not the Rio, and the Win, right? These are places that you can, when they throw a guarantee on it, you know they're going to meet it, and that just sort of puts them above places like the Venetian or the Bellagio or somewhere who are willing to cancel it a day before.
It's essentially an extension of what Annie Duke was. One of the many reasons why she was ostracized from the community forever was the Epic Poker League many years ago, where, you know, these pros played with the, you know, with the notion that there's going to be $1 million added at the end of the season, right? And that's why they played in bad tournaments, right? Because, you know, theoretically you're playing with all the top players, the rankings and all that stuff. So they took their word for it, and then, you know, they dropped the ball and they didn't come up with it, right? You know, it happened at the Venetian, not just recently. There was all these tournaments, the Stairway to Millions or whatever, like it was, you know, and then they just canceled the last 4 or something like that. I get it. There's no tournaments, there's no players left, but like, if you're going to do that, fine, but just don't put guarantees on, because now you're really just, there's nothing wrong with canceling tournaments. Bellagio had to cancel a couple. No guarantee on it, no harm, no foul. But when you have a guarantee on something, you cancel it the day before because only 3 people showed up.
If you're giving, you just want to like, because what a guarantee is doing is you're expressing the idea, I'm going to run a big poker tournament, right? That's essentially what you're saying. We've got $1,000 buy-in with a $500,000 guarantee. I'm going to tell you that there's going to be 500 or more entrants, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And if I'm wrong, then I'm going to lose some money, right? So all you have to do, if you want to make it a big deal, is you could even just say like an estimated X $100,000 prize pool. You could say that. It's not as powerful as saying guaranteed, because you're not backing it. You're not putting your money where your mouth is, but at least you don't look like a scummy piece of shit when you don't meet it, right? And you don't, because if you, as Daniel said, if you don't have the approval from the higher ups to say like, hey, gee, boss, we might lose like 125K on this if the numbers don't quite work out right and our estimates are a bit wrong. If you don't have that okay and you have to cancel it, then you look like shit. And poker players are big on integrity things, and they have long memories when it comes to stuff like this. So in my opinion, if I was doing this, if I was if I was running a poker room and I didn't have like the approval of the bosses to say like, hey, you know, $1 million guaranteed, and hey, we might take a bath on this, and they weren't okay with that, and they said, Terrence, no, we're not going to, you know, if you overlay $200,000 on this, your ass is out the door. Then I would say, I could say like, hey, estimated $750,000 prize pool. Like, that's a reasonable thing to say. And it's not lying if I believe it to be true. It's not as powerful because it's not a guarantee, but at least I don't kill the brand. I don't hurt the brand when we come up short.
What these companies do is they diminish what the word guarantee means. Like, what does it mean?
Yeah.
It used to mean that this is, going to be guaranteed prize pool, but now, because it's happened a couple of times in the last couple of months, it's sort of like guaranteed, if they hit it. And then
it hurts everybody.
Not guaranteed,
and it's hurt everybody. It hurts the honest people who really do stand by their guarantees.
I want to say this too, because some people were, Poker Go has nothing to do with Venetian. I saw Vinny make the case, WPT should be affiliated. So they ran a Stairway to Millions over there, and Poker Go had nothing to do with that, right? But what they did do for those players that were affected is for those that came and played the next series that were all affected, like everyone in that, they played with no rake on not only their main entry, but rebuys too. So they didn't have to do that, but they did because it's the same player pool, and we sort of like put the PGT and the Poker Go brand on all these events because they qualify, they count. Again, we don't have any decisions there, but at least, they did something that they weren't even asked to do. And I think when that happens, I'm not going to take my hat off because my hair's a mess, but in theory, tip our hats to when people, when they go above and beyond when they don't have to, because Poker Go didn't have to do anything there, but they did.
Indeed. You mentioned it earlier, Daniel. The World Series of Poker Europe is kicking off in Rosvadov at the King's Casino tomorrow. Runs through 15 events, runs through November 15th, culminating in the 10K Euro buy-in, the main event. 2 day one flights for that tournament, November 11th and 12th. What's the sense of you mentioned the guarantees. I think the 50K, just point of order, has a $2 million guaranteed. So what's that, 40 players. What's your sort of take on how this is going to be received? Are there a bunch of people going over there? Has this changed now that sort of travel restrictions are coming down a little bit since the last one? Are we going to see a bigger turnout over there?
Okay, so I'm looking at the schedule that Leon sent me because I tweeted out that I went from 1% to 30% to go to this. Oh, wow. And partly it's because of my house thing. Partly it's because I really feel like I'm playing great right now and might as well strike while the iron is hot. And part of it too is the schedule. I'm looking at the schedule right now, and you're talking about 2 100Ks, and these are not bracelet events, the 100Ks, 2 100Ks. You've got a 50K, you've got 4 25Ks, and all these are unlimited, re-entry and rebuy and stuff like that. So that looks enticing. Now I want to warn those that go, okay? And my wife learned this quickly, and I sort of told her last time we went, I was like, babe, I don't think there's a lot to do there, other than play. And she's like, oh, that's fine. I don't mind staying in a hotel. Well, it's a non-smoking hotel that people smoke at, okay? I mean, it's just like, because people in the casino, if you're high roll, you just smoke. So every morning we were in the VIP, floor, and and it was like, there was some guy, I woke up every morning at 7 a.m. and literally blew smoke into the vent, and it woke us up, and she hated it so much. My wife didn't last 48 hours before she was back on a plane going home. So if you are going, go with the idea that this is about money. This is about the grind. This is about, the bracelet glory. This is about nitty gritty. This isn't vacation for you and your wife to go see the sights. I mean, obviously Prague is not far, if you had friends, you can stay there, but I wouldn't even ask Amanda. I was like,
Prague's like 2 hours away.
Something, I don't know, you can get like a helicopter or whatever like that. But anyway, I don't know, there's Germany not far. There's stuff, I don't know. But anyway, point being is like, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Not every stop needs to be the luxurious, beautiful
Barcelona. Barcelona, I think, is the one that everybody loves. Yeah.
This is a fucking poker room. The poker room is good. It's sizable. You got the smoke issue. They got food for you. There's free buffet. Alan Kessler likes it. Okay, because it's like they don't put sauce on it. Just no. I mean, he gets what he wants. He's like, I just want bread, meat, no sauce, no salt, no nothing. Okay, and we'll just wash it down with a Coke. But they've got all the stuff that you need for poker, right? So there'll be value, right? There'll be good tournaments, and if that's what you want to do and you want to go play poker, then and that's where I'm at right now. Like, I'm not going to bring a nice suit or anything like that. I'm going to bring sweats. I'm going to bring my GG hats, my GG hoodies. And I'm thinking I went from 1 to 30, but I think I'm over 50 now, guys. Just from talking about it, I'm like, I'm hearing the Rounders music. Doom, doom, chips, stacks on stacks. Fuck it, let's go play some poker. I'm like that scene.
So your shirt's not an accident today.
No, right?
The worm shirt.
Action. Yeah, this is the work shirt.
A lot of action.
So yeah, I think I'm gearing towards going. One of the issues too sometimes. Well, no, I won't even bring that up because it's not important. But no, they take good care of me when I go there. I get along well with the people. And again, they even told me before I went, like, Amanda maybe doesn't want to come to this one. And I was like, yeah, probably not. But I told them, like, last time I was like, I moved out of the fancy suite and I moved into like just a regular fucking room far away that had no smoke. And it was like, this is heaven because I'm sensitive to smoke too. Yeah, I feel like I'm in degen mode. I've just been sick. My body's not in shape right now. I'm not working out. Perfect time to just eat a bunch of shit and go to Roswadov, grind and come away with some gold. And really the other thing too, this is sort of the main driver kind of, is I really want to play in this PGT championship that's in December. And it's going to be tough. I'm 22nd right now. It's the top 21 who get in. But the guy whoever wins the win, for example, they'll be in there, right? They're gonna have enough points. So I need to do some damage. And these events out there, running out of time, I feel like if I knock off a couple of those, I'll do well. And I really feel like poker-wise, I told my wife the other day, I was like, I finally come to understand through learning theory. And I don't want to stress. I don't want people to look at this and say, oh, you see, oh, that GTO is bullshit. No, it's not bullshit, guys. It is valuable as fuck to learn the theory, to dive into the streets, to use the solvers, to really fine tune your game, okay? It's incredibly valuable, but you also have to realize, okay, that no human being is going to implement this actually optimal. There will be things you can exploit, right? Let me use an extreme example. If your opponents don't exploit you, right, and they just play how they play, right? And there's a spot where, you know, GTO is to bet quarter pot to get rid of some king highs and whatever, right? And you're supposed to bet quarter pot, right? Well, what happens if your opponents are basically not studied and they're basically reacting to 25% and 40% the same, or let's say half pot, they react to both the same, okay? Then you could, in theory, right, bet quarter pot with your bluffs and half pot with your value. Oh, the cardinal sin, but Daniel, that's not balanced. Oh my God. But here's the thing. If your opponents are trying to adhere to a GTO strategy, they won't even try to exploit you. And in addition to that, in tournaments, it's such a small sample size that they probably won't even catch on, right? It's the same old adage. Like if you play rock, paper, scissors, Terrence, and you throw each one a third each time, right? And I play rock every single time, and you don't change and you keep doing what you're doing, and I'm an idiot playing rock every time, you don't win anything from me because you're not taking advantage of the information. Game theory is designed in such a way to learn the baselines and then figure out how your opponents veer from those baselines. This guy bluffs too much. This guy calls too much. This guy peels flops too light. This guy does this. Everybody does something. Nobody's playing GTO. So this obsession is a trap. It is. The idea that you want to be perfectly balanced in all these spots, it's an absolute trap, and it is inferior to playing exploitative with the knowledge that you're exploiting, right? So like you have to first know, okay, this is the baseline. Oh, but I know I'm going to go this way because this guy goes this way. That's poker at its finest, and it's not dead, y'all, especially in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, there's the important caveat is you still have to understand what bets too much, folds too much, all of these things look like before you can say it. The difference between rock, paper, scissors and poker is that, like I said, if you're just a dummy, you play rock every time, I can only actually win if I play paper more frequently. The problem is that it's very obvious that you're playing dumb, right? Like so for example, if we're playing a hand, like let's say we're playing just a silly simple game like ace to five low ball or something like that, and you catch on that every time I make a pair on the end, I bet. That's way over bluffing. Every low ball player knows that you should probably only bet like a small percentage of pairs, usually your top pair. If you don't actually know that, then you can't actually exploit it. So it's important to actually know what's correct. You know, like, so, you know, in No Limit Hold'em, this guy plays too many hands from under the gun, 9-handed. What does that mean? Does that mean like too many hands is like 30% of the hands, 20% of the hands, 15% of the hands? If you have no idea what the guy's supposed to play under the gun, you can't actually exploit it. So
that's where the theory comes into play. Yeah. I wanted to sort of piggyback that because you're making a really good point. And I was thinking of one example that's really good is the river. Okay. So like say the river, say GTO says on the river against this bet, you should be calling 50% of the time. So with the top 50% of your range, right? Now you're balanced, right? Person's going to be bluffing sometimes, person's going to have it sometimes, but you're defending at the right frequency, right? What about though, if you're up and against an opponent who literally to the extreme never, ever, ever bluffs the river and you still do that? You know what you're doing? You're fucking punting, guys. You're playing GTO, which is like, guys, I'm calling it the right frequency. I need this to defend. But if I'm never bluffing, you're just giving me your fucking chips every time you make the dumb call. you're supposed to exploit there and literally never call, or whatever the case may be. You see, that's like just an example. But it's so hard for these guys to wrap their head around it a lot of times because they're, some of them are slaves to the sim. So they kind of want to ignore the stuff they see. They don't want to play the leveling more because that's what it is, right? That's how solvers.
They're worried that this is the time that you're not, right? Like this is the time actually he's going to deviate. So I don't want to think that like, oh, he realizes he's never been caught bluffing, so he's probably going to be bluffing this time. Like they don't want to go into that.
See, what two computers did, the way solvers were created was two AIs literally were trying to level each other. They were trying to level, I'm going to bluff more, I'm going to bluff less, I'm going to bluff more, I'm going to bluff less. And then they're trying to be, and they get to a point where they have to get to a balance because they figure each other out to the point where they know it's not exploitable. But that's not at all what we're going to see, from any human being, right? Like if people are not willing to exploit you, then it doesn't matter fuck at all if you're not balanced. Now, that's a rare case, right? Well, most players are veering from that to a certain degree or have understood that. But there are still plenty who think like, oh, no. And I wouldn't say I fell into that trap, but I was headed that way more than but that's part of the learning process too, right? In order for me to learn the theory, I had to learn the numbers and I had to learn, to randomize and be balanced in all these situations so that I can look at that and look at how everyone else is playing and find ways to exploit it.
Well, the other thing is they're probably not very good at collecting and using the information to exploit, right? That you need to collect.
Well, that's where skill comes in. That's where like natural card playing talent is. That's why guys like Bryn Kinney or whatever, forget about the other stuff. He's like, that's why he's able to compete still. He's not studying fucking solvers ever. He never looked at one. He doesn't know anything about that shit. He just plays and he knows how people think and he makes moves and he veers, but like he has faith in the fact that people are not going to be able to exploit what he's doing exploitatively, right? Because if you exploit to a, let's say for example, one of your exploits is like you just raise the flop every time and you're always bluffing because people can't call, they can't defend there, right? Imagine that was you, right? Well, if they don't know you're doing that with air all the time, then it's going to work for a long period of time until it doesn't. Then when they adjust and go, I see what he's doing, now you can flip it on, right? So it's a fun game of cat and mouse, and it always will be if you're trying to play the best possible poker you can. You're not trying to replicate a GTO bot. You're trying to play better than that. Better by like seeing spots where the robot says, I'm going to call 50% and say, no. I'm calling here 0% and I'm going to print more EV than you.
All right, so that's the World Series of Poker Europe. Daniel, looks like you're off to the way you're talking. It sounds like you're going. I mean, I think
62% now.
Yeah, where can I bet on you are going at that rate?
Matt Forsberg had it at 98% already, just because I asked the question.
Yeah, you've got the hat on. Just a little bit of hockey talk. I think it's I think we mentioned it earlier, but one of your friends in the sports world, Phil Kessel, who was assigned by the Las Vegas Knights to your team. Well, at least I think they're your team. You got the Leafs hat on still, but you get to watch your buddy play 42 times this year at home, so it's good for you. And he's the Iron Man in the NHL and played against Toronto last night to it was a tie or move ahead. I can't remember if it was which one was it.
So last night, well, when this will air, it'll probably be last night with the one against Toronto. That was him tying the record. And I mean, I always felt like he already had the record because if you could count playoffs, then he did. He was already over 1,000 games, including playoffs. Yeah. But tonight, after we get off this podcast, he'll be in San Jose and he'll be accomplishing the record. And I think if you really want to get a sense of Phil Kessel, watch some of the interviews he did just yesterday and the day before. They're all so awkward and so hilarious, like unintentionally. And Greg Wyszynski wrote a nice piece. I was one of the ones that was featured in it, sort of 5 stops for him, like, Boston, Toronto, Arizona, and one person from each one of the stops sharing some stories about Phil. And one of my favorites was shared by, I think, James Van Riemsdyk, there was, about Phil, because he's just a goofy guy, right? And Pierre Maguire, he just got off the ice, and he goes to Phil, and he's like, Phil, how's your breath? Like, are you out of breath? And Phil looks at him, he goes, it's bad, eh? Like thought he meant his bad breath. And then the next day, of course, all the guys in the team put like a bunch of mints and halls and scope like in front of his stall and stuff. But it was really cool to see, and then of course, like Phil, he's going to be like, oh, of course, He's gone 399 goals. Okay. So what a perfect story in the game that he ties it for him to score number 400. And he scores. right, against the Leafs. Now, a couple minutes go by, it seems like. All of a sudden, the Leafs, I'm like, guys, let it go. Don't you dare. Be respectful, right? We want a challenge. The challenge takes 5 minutes or something like that. And of course, Phil's laughing on the bench going, yeah, oh yeah, they're going to take it back. So the goal comes back. But then he does make a nice assist on the, 30 seconds later. And, the Knights, get a win for him. I was super happy for him. He wants his shit to all be over. You can tell. He's like, yeah, he kind of hates the attention. But anyway, if you haven't read the piece, it's on ESPN, Greg Wyszynski. It's really cool. I'm obviously I tell a little poker story in there from his PLO experience with me in the World Series of Poker too.
Can you see when he's wrapped up the career? Can you see him just playing full time, hanging out with you in Vegas and just playing the World Series and doing stuff? Is that in his character?
Well, listen, he's a dad now, right? He loves his, he's a family man now, and he loves Vegas and whatnot. And I think he's always going to want to play cards. At what level, who knows? I certainly don't think he's going to, veer into broadcasting. Like I don't see him, with PK Subban like on TNT. Although he'd be perfect. I mean, really, like to add to that, the Biz Nasty crew and TNT, like Phil would just be crazy for, crazy good for it, but he would never want to do something like that. So yeah, I would imagine he likes to fish. He likes to play cards. He's a simple, good old American, eh?
All right. Well, we should have him on the show one time. I think it'd be fun to not talk hockey at all. Maybe just talk some poker and pick his brain a little.
Here's what he'll be like. I don't know, bro. Hey, it's like every time I get aces, they just keep hitting. I don't know what's going on, It sounds exactly the same, like when he talks about hockey or poker, like when the puck's not dropping. I don't know, puck just won't go in, It just won't drop. It's like crazy. And then PLO, oh yeah, aces 4 times. I lost. Look at these hands. He sends me the hands. I'm like, yeah, it's a bad beat. But he's like, is this possible? I'm like, yes, I've experienced it. I know. You could lose like 7 in a row. It happens. But yeah, he's a funny curmudgeon in that regard.
Let's move on to some tweets, Roscoe.
You're going surfing on the internet.
Me? I'm up. All right.
Me.
Anna at Bonafide Anna. You ever been in a limp pot with a couple people and nobody looks interested? So you think to yourself, let me steal this $30 real quick so we can move on to the next hand. Next thing you know, it's the river and you're all in with 6 high questioning if your parents were right about you getting a job. This is like the most relatable, no limit, like low stakes, low to mid stakes, no limit hold'em thing ever. Because you're just like, yeah, whatever. They obviously don't have anything. Let me just put in a big raise. And then the shit just escalates. It's the most, I don't know. I mean, like Daniel probably hasn't played a lot of like 2-5 at the win or anything in a while, but
it's also not small ball. It's not Daniel's style to just 3x the pot.
Yeah.
I was always terrified to play with my chips. When I've racked up my chips, I start putting chips back into the pot because like a couple times it's turned out real bad, and you end up with like 1 or 2 less racks going to the cage.
Or you just leave it all there,
or you end up just unracking and staying.
At Pure Papa 2, he says there's an image. And the context is super knit, no straddles guy, shoves pre versus super fun and handsome action player who was blasting off at the time. There's a pair of pocket kings and a pair of pocket 9s. The board runs out king, queen, 6, jack, queen. And so the super nitty guy who does not straddle gets punished for it. And you love to see it. And I think anytime the straight table straddling and having a good time, if there's a nit who refuses to straddle, they deserve to lose a lot of money, in my opinion. But that's just me.
You know what's funny about that? Years ago, you guys remember on the big game, me and Tony G absolutely lambasted Andrew Robbi. Okay. Because Robel was playing and everybody was straddling, and Robel wouldn't straddle because Robel sold pieces and he was being responsible and he didn't want to give up edge because, I guess he didn't okay it with, had a piece or whatever the case may be. And it's funny that it's come so far full circle that playing with Andrew Robel, like he's the one that wants straddles on at all times and is like the only one he'll put on like, if you like say we're playing 200, 400, someone puts the 8, then the 16, then the 32, he's throwing out the 64. Like he's like the most amped to straddle now. And listen, we gave him a hard time back then, and I think somewhat for good reason, because if you're going to come on a TV show and everyone's straddling, you don't want to be that guy. And I think he agrees now, but at the time, listen, it's probably it was a big opportunity, and you don't want to, you don't want to make negative minus EV plays with other people's money.
All right, moving on. Dan Wyman, poker player Dan Wyman says, today I learned I can't swallow a pill at 35 years old. Look forward to finding out more basic human functions that my idiot brain won't allow me to do. Matt Salzberg, he asks, I'm confused. If you've never taken a pill before? And Dan says, nope. And I'm trying to 34 years
Meaning
old.
he's like never had an infection or anything. Like,
I mean, have you guys never dealt with that? As a kid, up till I was like probably 15, I couldn't take pills. I couldn't
yeah, but
swallow.
like, what did you do if you had like an infection? You need antibiotics or something.
So what would happen, what my mom would do, literally, because one time she tried apple juice. So I was drinking water. She's like, here, do it with apple juice. I'm like, I would just go like this and spit it all out. Like it wouldn't go down. So my mother used to literally break them into powder, put them in water in a teaspoon and feed them to me that way. Because I couldn't figure out how to swallow it. And I don't know, when I learned, now I feel like I swallow like 12 vitamins together now, but
yeah, I did. You just work on that gag reflex and they all go down.
But yeah, it's crazy how it's like, it was just a mental thing. Like, I think I have a lot of that in a lot of areas in terms of control. And like, I have a very, what do you call it? I'm in my head a lot, I guess you would say. So like, I'm not like just free and relaxed to just be like, just go. Like, I can't chug water. I can't chug. Like, I always go, stop. Because I think in a very preventative way, right? Like whenever I see a disaster or danger or whatever, I'm always extra careful and not wild, loosey-goosey. And I think that sort of mindset is part of the reason, now that I look back, wow, therapy session here, as to why pills were difficult for me to swallow, water to chug. And really even like, on our honeymoon, me and my wife, we went on one of those boats, like the catamaran boats, where you're on like the net, like there. You're supposed to feel free. It's fun, whatever. The entire time, my hands were locked in to the rope so that just in case something happened, I wouldn't fly off. Like, stupid shit like that.
Wow, you're a life net. Who knew?
Yeah.
All right. Farrah Galfon tweets, I low-key live for Alan Kessler's fast food tweets. Replies, I legit couldn't walk into McDonald's and pay $3.89 for a large fries. And Farrah asks, was it the 89, the 09? How much would you pay for the large? Did you win a tournament last night? Like, these are all hilarious questions. Like, Kessler just will not pay $3 for
anybody who watches Curb Your Enthusiasm. If you don't see Alan Kessler every time you watch the show, then you're not seeing the same show I do. Like, they have that New York kind of like, what's the word? Eccentric,
neuroticism,
neurotic, eccentric, and like the dumbest shit will drive me. Like, like one of the old episodes of Curb, whatever. There's a lady in front at the ice cream place, and she's just getting a sample because free samples at the ice cream place. She takes 1, 2, 3. He's like, you got to limit the number of samples. You can't sample every one. That's like you're gonna get a full order, and it drives him nuts. It has nothing to do with him. But he's like, this is he's like, yeah, you had enough samples.
What does Alan Kessler intend to do with all the money? Like, so we know Bill Perkins is the die with zero guy. Spend it all before you die, give it away to people before you die with zero. What, like, Alan is got to be like incapable of that. Like, what's going to happen to all the money when he dies? Like, he's just collecting it, never spending any of it. Like,
he's literally just bread, like hamburger, bread, no condiments, no ketchup, no sauce, and a Coca-Cola, and that's Alan Kessler.
Like, what is the plan for all this money? Like, I don't.
Like, he eats no lettuce. I don't think this fucking guy has ever had a vegetable since I've known him. He just straight bread, meat, whatever.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
It would be more interesting though if he kind of was more open about trying to find love, because he's always like kind of,
I just saw a picture of him on Twitter. He's
hitting on chicks on the internet.
Yeah.
3 women at dinner. He's like, me and my ladies. You go, Alan.
Attaboy. Good to hear. All right.
I love how Alan, he's a typical, in the vlog, I talk about this, and a lot of men do this, right? I'll see a guy who's, whatever, not in shape and sloppy and whatever like that, and dresses like a slob. And I'll be like, what kind of, you single? Like, what kind of girl are you looking for? I'm like, well, I'm looking for somebody who's really fit, put together, works out. And I'm like, so you want a woman that is like, probably not going to want someone like you. Like, did you ever think that maybe she wants somebody that also has those interests? He's like, no. He goes, I want a slender, young Asian. I'm like, okay. Slender, young Asian. Okay.
He does not like to spend money whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, where's the first dinner date? Is it the buffet? Do you go the 2-for-1?
Got coupons.
Is it comps?
Everywhere.
Because if you can't go to a steakhouse. She'll order something too expensive.
We've got coupons.
All right, lads, that's going to wrap it up for the show this week. Thanks to you guys for getting together. Daniel, it looks like you're going to head out. Bring your video equipment of some sort, and maybe we'll sneak a podcast in over there if you have a day off or
there's nothing better to do in Rosvedov if you bust out of a tournament. So
won't be vlogging. I'm not going to be vlogging this one. You've seen, there's nothing to see here.
All right, boys. Thanks again. Thanks to you out there for listening, and we will talk to you next week.